So hello everyone, I welcome you at the 26th Ji.hlava International Documentary Film Festival. We are presenting Transparent Landscape, which is our retrospective selection of the films from the Philippines. And I have here a very dear guest, Filipino filmmaker, but also film historian and professor Nick Deocampo. Hello.
Hello.
At first, I would like to ask you maybe more general question, which is how you would describe the Filipino cinema and cinematography of filmmakers they're doing now in these days with contemporary topics, some approaches.
The coming of the 21st century has really changed Philippine cinema a lot. It's sad to say, but I'd like to think the movie industry itself has collapsed. It's not how it used to be in the 60s or in the 70s, when there was a very robust production of commercial movies. But with the coming of the digital technology and the pandemic, much of the work is being done in the so-called alternative cinema, which I guess is very good for festivals like Ji.hlava, because mainly these are short films, these are experimental films, these are documentaries, and we have 7,000 islands. And that means so many filmmakers have been shut out from the industrial cinema that was only in Manila almost like 3 decades or 2 decades ago. But now films are coming from everywhere, from north, south, east, west. And that's very good because short films, I guess, this is the time when it is experiencing a very good growth. So the kind of cinema we have now is pretty much plural in the sense that, yeah, we still produce commercial movies, but it's not how it used to be.
Maybe if you could name few like more dominant topics or...
The dominant topics, of course, I mean, politics has been taking a big share in the production of the films, mainly because, well, of course, we went through the military dictatorship, and for the past 6 years, we had maybe you've heard about Rodrigo Duterte, who was almost like Marcos, who fashioned himself like a right-wing president, and now the country has elected the son of the former dictator. So the documentaries are produced, in a lot of ways right now, and even by women directors, and that's very good. But there's also the LGBTQ, so there's a strong emergence of films that were repressed before. So personally, I make gay films, and many of my students and the community, that I try to help, they're even making trans films, trans women, trans man films, and that's very good because I think in Southeast Asia we're among the ones at the forefront of that. But at the same time, there's also the environment. But I think the more important thing is that the films now are really more into so many formats, like there's animation, there's 3D, outside of documentary, and short fiction, and there are, a lot of other forms of cinema that have flourished.
Maybe if we can speak shortly about your films. We present, for example, film Oliver, which is a very personal message of yours, but it's very, not old, but it's few years from when you shot it. Does the perspective change? Do you have like different feelings when you see the film, or is the message connected with this film, Oliver, now slightly changed?
It's amazing because next year Oliver will be 40 years, all right? I made it after I arrived from Paris, where I studied film making, and so that was still the time of Marcos, and so we were all protesting against him, but the interesting thing is we cannot be that political, so my film is very sociological, social. It's a view about the human condition that homosexuals were experiencing during that time. So the view now is, it's interesting because 6 years after, I made another film, but this time it's about a homosexual who works in Japan. So it's The Sex Warriors and the Samurai, which is also being programmed here. So if you look at the two films, I mean, is there a change going on in the Philippines? I mean, it used to be that homosexuals had to work as prostitutes within the country, but now it looks like the country was exporting even homosexuals abroad to find job outside. The change has, happened in the sense that maybe the homosexuals now are more like they're not cross-dressers anymore. We really have a very clear community of trans, but homosexuals who are straight-looking do not want to identify. So it looks like the community has become bigger. So in that way, I am one generation away from the more contemporary LGBTQ community, because it looks like, but it's a good development, because now we're all, finding our own identities, and we who were in the 80s, fighting for our rights under the dictatorship, for example, we cannot impose our values to those who are in the present. So there's a big change happening.
Okay, and speaking about identity, when we been to the Philippines and we spoke to you, we kind of, you made the research for us, but somehow together we found this very precious film, almost 1 century old, and it's called The Native Life in the Philippines. As a historian, maybe can you tell us more about this film, because we know that it was produced in 1913, which is few years before Flaherty's Nanook, and in the feature length as it is, like 70-something minutes, it's something not correct with the history of documentary films. So how you found this film?
Oh, this is a very interesting topic, because the film was found in, it was lost for almost like 60 years, all right? And it was found in the basement of the University of Pennsylvania. And then it was made by a very right-wing politician named Dean C. Worcester. And finally, almost exact to 100 years, it was found again, and it was reshown in the University of Michigan, where I was able to talk about the film. And it's very interesting because it made early representations of the Filipinos that was used really for political purposes in America, in not granting the independence of the Philippines, because we were seen as uncivilized, savages, and cannibals and all that. So, but things have changed after 100 years. So we're looking at it more as an archival artifact that somehow tells us how Filipinos were regarded 100 years before.
Yeah. So we will see this film. Our guests and visitors can see the film also online. So I invite you, everyone, to see this kind of very precious Filipino selections. And thank you, Nick, for joining us.
Thank you very much, Andrea.
Thank you.